We've heard time and again that coronavirus will persist until there's a vaccine that could be a year or 18 months away. For more on that, let's bring in NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel. Richard is in London. He spoke to the CEO of one of the 4 companies currently in human trials for a coronavirus vaccine and to volunteer for the trial. Richard, these companies are moving very, very quickly to try to find this vaccine, aren't they?
They are moving extraordinarily quickly. So, as we've all been talking about over the last several weeks, there are 3 legs to this stool that will get us out of this. There is the testing component we were just talking about now, so that we know what we're dealing with, how many people in our society have the coronavirus or have had it, so we can figure out how to manage our social systems. Then there is the medical treatment, how to make sure that the symptoms aren't as severe, so hopefully not as many people end up in the hospitals. And then ultimately the holy grail, which is a vaccine. And there are already about 70 different trials around the world, a handful of them already in clinical trials, which means they are already testing this on human beings. They're about to start one of those clinical trials on humans here in the UK today at Oxford University. There are currently 2 in the United States. One of them is being run by a company called Inovio, and they are already underway. And what they're doing is a unique approach. What they're injecting into volunteers a DNA code, a piece of the coronavirus code, specifically the code for the spike. By now, we all know what the coronavirus looks like. It's this ball with little spikes on it. They're putting the code for one of the spikes into people with the idea that the code will replicate in the body, and then the body will recognize that spike, won't like it, and will begin producing antibodies to fight against it. I spoke with both the CEO of the company, Dr. Kim, and I spoke to one of the volunteers, a man named Mike. The medical staff there asked us not to use his last name for his privacy concerns. And Mike, so far, is feeling very well. He is a lab engineer at the facility, one of the people, a maintenance engineer who helps keep the lights on, keeps the facility running, and he wanted to do his part after a friend of his died, he believes, from COVID-19. So let's hear two clips, which I believe you have lined up. One from Mike and the other from the CEO. Did it burn? Did it hurt? What was it like?
It just felt like any other shot, your flu shot or whatever. I don't know. So I haven't had any side effects. I thought my arm might be, swollen or bruised or something, but no, nothing whatsoever.
You felt no discomfort, no pain at all?
None at all. I went through the whole list of side effects, and I kind of stopped reading because I didn't want to scare myself. So I thought, let me just see how I feel, see what comes naturally. And like I say, so far, absolutely nothing.
What exactly are you injecting into someone's arm?
So we've honed in on the spike protein of the coronavirus, which is the most outer layer of the virus protein that allows them to dock into the patient's cells. So it's actually an entry point. It's an anchor that the virus uses to get in. So it's a great target for our immune cells to go after, our antibodies and T cells. So what we're injecting to the patient is a DNA sequence for the full-length spike protein. So we inject that genetic code into the patient's cells, and they safely and effectively manufacture a whole host of the spike protein. And those presence of spike protein really jumpstarts the immune system, recognizing it and being ready to pounce when the actual virus enters the body.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.